Hi, my name is Erika, I'm a knitter from Brazil, and you are watching Every Garment I Ever Knitted for Myself, which is the last but one video from my series Everything I Ever Knit. Well, the title is a little bit misleading because this is not everything I ever knitted for myself, but rather everything I ever knitted for myself before this year, and that is not included in the previous videos from the series. So I have here with me 12 garments that were not in the previous themes that we have covered, like test knits or vintage knits. So I have my notes, I have a pile of garments here. Each of these was an experience of its own. So let's dive in. So everything that we have here today was knitted between 2023 and 2024. I knitted before that. I started knitting in 2021, but before the half of 2023 I was only knitting gifts. So the first item ever I knitted for myself was this pullover that you have seen here. You have seen me wearing it, I think, in our 7th podcast episode. It's not showing the best color here, but I will try to post pictures to show you the exact blue that this jumper is in. So for all of this today, I will say to you some specifics, but I will not lay out every technical detail because I will focus on my experience in knitting every one of them, which for most of the projects it's written down in my Ravelry notes. For this one, this pattern is the number 10 seed stitch pullover by Rosemary Drysdale from Vogue Knitting, late winter 2008. And it's what the name says, it's a seed stitch pullover. The original one was knitted in, I think, 15 and 13 needles, and mine wasn't. Mine was knitted in 8mm needles. You can see it's quite oversized yet, so to get this effect I have knitted the size extra large to get a size small for myself, since it's very off gauge. I don't remember the gauge, but my gauge was 13 stitches in 10 centimeters with 8mm needles. It was knitted partially flat, the front was flat, back was flat, then you pick up for the sleeves, then you seam here in the underarm, the entire sleeve, then you pick up for the neckline and you do a trick with different sized needles so it folds beautifully and gives this very cozy giant 60s neckline. I have mixed feelings about this one. I wear it a lot. Of course, not every time, but in the dead of winter, this doesn't leave my body most of the time because it's like a lovely blanket. It covers me a lot, and as I made the sleeves maybe a little too short, you can see here it leaves part of my wrist and my hand free. It's also convenient for doing chores and all these kind of things that we can't do with very long sleeves, the typical long sleeves of very wintry sweaters like that. There is a little hole here. I have yarn to fix it. This is acrylic and polyamide, so the ends don't stick where they should. They keep falling, and it's also a fluffy yarn, so it's pilly and it's not in its best shape, but it's perfect to wear at home, so I like it as it is. I don't find the length particularly flattering in me. I tried elongating it with the extra yarn I had. I picked it up to create a ribbon here, so I could elongate it. But the ribbon did not match the sleeves. It was better with this raw edge, so to say. It's just cast off here and cast on here. It fits the design better. The original design is much baggier, but this is enough for me. And that's it. It was a nice experience. Although I knitted it in a not so nice moment of my life, hospital stuff and everything, a family member wasn't fine, a very scary moment of my life. But maybe because of that, it was something I had to relax in that moment. I enjoyed it. And I think it was the first written pattern I worked with. Before that, I was either self-draft or watch video tutorials. It was my first garment for myself. The yarn is Alaska. It's a bulky weight, and it took me 1 month and a half to knit this one. Now we will head to my second garment for myself, which also was made with Alaska Penguin, but Alaska Star, which apart from the acrylic and the nylon, it has a little metallic thread running through it, and this is a little bit more ragged. It's my Cassi Cardigan by Anne Schwartz. It's a free pattern on hobby website. I didn't love it when I finished it, but I ended up wearing it a lot. Not the first year in which I made it, because I think I finished it after the winter, so I wore it a lot in the following year. It was hanging there because I just keep it out and wear it whenever, because it's very simple, and I think it was my first top-down raglan cardigan, so working back and forth. Since it's a free pattern, I can say it starts with the neckline here. We knit this bit, and then we pick up stitches for the button band, which is knitted with the sweater, and for the shoulders and for the raglan, and then we go on in this very simple raglan. To be honest, you can notice that my stitches are twisted. When I knitted this one, I still twisted everything. They are also twisted in the ribbing, so I accidentally created twisted rib without it being my intention or being a feature of the pattern. I started knitting size small, which is usually the size I knit. When I was getting to the moment when we should split for sleeves, I was afraid that it wouldn't fit properly, so I switched it and I kept increasing until size medium. Later, when I finished it, I thought that I could have just finished it in the size small, because I think we just increased 1 or 2 more times, which in this gauge, fair enough, they do make a lot of difference. 8 stitches in this gauge make for a bulky increase here, I think more than 5 centimeters. So when I finished it, I thought I could have kept the small, but since it's oversized anyway, it's not that big of a deal. I don't remember if it was the first or the last buttonhole. I didn't create one of them. It's the first. So originally it only had 4, but since it was larger than I planned, I needed to close this here too. But since the gauge is so large, I just passed the button through some of the stitches and it closes here. I went for brown buttons because when I finished it, I thought that they looked compatible with the bulky weight of this. I had these buttons in my stash. I went for them. The other thing is here, you can see the balloon sleeve is very tiny. Not the best to pass my wrist through. However, the reason is this was knitted in 8 needles. I didn't have the 7, which was the one recommended for the wrist. So I just went down to the one I had, which was 6, and it became tiny. It's a simple pattern. It's a easy knit. However, it's not the best written pattern. But since now there are, I think, enough projects there that correct the omissions of the pattern, mostly something to do with which one is the wrong side, which one is the right side. In some moments we have to pick up stitches. It was my second knit for myself. I think my second pattern I worked with. And I have to say that I started it in some moments and then I shoved it in a box because it was very early in my knitting career, and until then I didn't make increases and decreases. This one's pretty flat knitting. So I was leaving holes along my raglan and other increases, so it took me some time. I forgot this pattern for a while, then I picked it back later, having worked in other things, and then I was able to make the increases correctly. When I did pick up the Cassi Cardigan to actually knit it, I finished it in 19 days, so you can see it's an easy pattern. And now we go to my third garment for myself, which was my third sweater, my striped sweater here by Andrea Maury. You probably know this one. The other two are not so famous, but this one is pretty famous and I really love this sweater. It's my first pattern with thinner yarn. If you follow my channel today, you know that I knit mostly with fingering and sport, but back then a lot of bulky weight. So today we have a lot of bulky weight. This one was my first sport weight yarn, so it took me more time accordingly. It took me precisely 1 month and 1 day. I started it August 6, 2023 and I finished it September 7. My birthday, it was September 8th, so I rushed through this project because I wanted to wear it in my birthday. And I managed to make this, but I do not advise you to do that because since I was knitting like that all the time, I got a bad case of back pain. So don't do it, don't rush, because it took a good time to heal, to be honest. I think I had back pain for 3 weeks after that. Maybe I should have gone to the doctor, but I just stopped it and paused it and rested and everything went back to place. I do not recommend you to do that. But since everything ended up well, I'm glad I have the garment now. Stripes is advertised as a pattern for scrappy yarn. This is not scrappy yarn. I planned this one beforehand. I wanted to experiment this yarn because it had a little bit of alpaca, and I have been in the chase for animal fibers in Brazil as much as I can. We very rarely find 100% animal fiber, but we have those blends around the year, and this is one of them. I think it's 70% acrylic, 30% llama or alpaca. I don't know if there is a difference between llama and alpaca for fiber's sake, but this is so soft. It's a little bit prickly if I wear directly on my skin, but after a while I got used to it, and my skin is usually pretty sensitive, not so much to wool and yarn, but to cosmetic and creams and lotions and these kind of things. For this, my skin is quite sensitive, but it handled well this one. And I really loved to knit the experience. I love the round yokeness of it all. This was my first round yoke. It was my first paid pattern from an indie designer. Very thorough pattern. And well, first time I made short rows. I think these are wrap and turns in this pattern. I think she doesn't use German short rows here yet. The arms, as a common complaint, they are pretty skinny in most of Andrea Mauri's patterns, but this one for sure. And if you follow my channel, you know that I have repaired my wrists, my cuffs. I have repaired these cuffs in my Fixit February this year because they were so tight. I have cast off this with simple bind off because I only learned how to make more of a stretchy bind off when I got to the waist, and here I had no problems at all, different from other past projects. But the cuffs didn't get it until this year, and now I can wear it better. But of course, since they are 3/4 sleeves and it's not a very long sweater and it's a quite thin sweater, it's more of a spring or autumn top. And we don't have those mid-range climate days in Brazil, in Santa Catarina at least, where I live. We don't have it often. We usually have very hot, very cold days. So these are rare days in which I can wear it, but my birthday is one of them, the time of my birthday when we're getting closer to spring. And as I say, the colors were not an accident. They were planned. I didn't know which one to pick, so I decided I was going to pick one skin of each one. I think I wanted the purple, the black, and the dark blue, and then I got these two because the pattern needed 5 or 6 colors, and because then I would have contrast. And I could keep a palette that was adequate for dark winter, which is my color season. I promised I would make videos about that, a video about color season and knitting. And this is one of my main experiences with using color season to guide my color picking, so to say. Because dark winters do very well with many colors in the same garment. They usually are recommended to get up to 3 colors, and some of them being neutrals. So here I could make it because then I have black, 2 purples, 2 blues, and then it's black, purple, blue. It's 3 colors. I cheated a little bit, but it's 3 colors basically. So I'm still within the margins that are easy to wear for a dark winter. And by making my edges black here, here, and here, I made it easier to wear with my bottoms, which are mostly black, and my other bottoms are dark blue, so a very wearable garment I got. I have modified the waist, I should say, because in the original pattern you knit stripes until the end and then you make a very tiny ribbon in the chosen color for the unifying parts. When I got here, it was precisely in my natural waist. So I thought, I don't want this to go much longer. I think you should add another repeat. I don't remember. She has a cropped version and a full length version. I was going for the cropped version anyway, but I said I won't go much further. I will make a larger ribbon because then I can cinch it, because also I don't like blousy effect. Usually I don't go for blousy effect or for bypassing the waist. I like to showcase my waist as a result of my studies of style. So I decided I was going just to make a longer ribbon with all the rest I had of the black. and make more of a vintage fit in this one. You can see it's cinched here. Then it would kind of flow smoothly into my pants or my skirt, whatever I wear with it, and it will still mark the waist. I think it was probably my first modification on a pattern. I was hesitant, to be honest. I was like, oh no, I want to follow it to a T. But then I said, it's a garment for myself. I have to do something that will be more wearable for myself. And I decided to go with it, and I'm very glad I did. I love this piece. As I said, my mom loves it. She says it's one of the most beautiful things I have made. And with this one, I found out that round yokes really suit me. So I haven't knitted more round yokes later, I think, but my preferences are satin sleeve, then round yoke, then raglan, and just then drop shoulder. Drop shoulder is the worst for myself. These things vary a lot, and I also think not every round yoke will fit me because it really depends on the designer and how they built it. But I'm eager to make other round yokes, especially from Andrea Maury, because I think hers, right, they suit me. And I made size 2. I knitted in 4 needles. Back then I was knitting English style and my gauge was tighter. So I got gauge with 4 and it's very drapey because of the alpaca, because of the combination of yarn thickness and needle size. All worked out for the best here. So let's go to the next project. We were then approaching the end of 2023 and the hot season too, because as I said, my birthday in September is becoming spring, and cast on this, which was my first table knitwear pattern, the Hedwig Tank. Here you have it, you can see. Black yarn, it's a mess when it comes to grabbing to every little tiny grain of powder and little hair that you have around here. Now it's okay. I cast on this pattern still in September, 1 week after my birthday, and I shoved it in a bag, as I do sometimes, and I only picked it back again when I finished many other projects in November 3, and I finished it in 1 week. I finished it November 10, because you can see, small, tiny. The gauge is kind of open, but it's not see-through when it's in the body. It was a big gauge, 5 needles, and the yarn is DK weight 100% cotton, non-mercerized. This yarn is Duna by Circulo, and it is more indicated for home decor. Maybe it would be similar to your Lily Sugar and Cream in the US. To be honest, I didn't love the experience of not so much knitting with it as wearing it, because it's thick, it takes a while to dry, and it loses the shape very easily. I have to come back here and try to tighten it with crochet or with elastic thread. It just got loose here. However, I wore it a lot at home because it's quite fresh. So in the hottest days of summer, even though it's kind of thick, it's quite open and short, and I can wear it, and it's 100% cotton. It doesn't kill me. I have a mixed feeling relationship with this one because it's so useful. Maybe I wear it so much because I don't care that much for this project. I would like to knit it again because it's so easy and quick. I knitted a size 2. I would go for a larger size, maybe extra large, the largest that she has there, and knit with a fingering weight, so it would be softer. Or maybe I would knit with a blend containing a stretch yarn together with the cotton to avoid this. But that's it, not much to tell about the Hedwig Tank. Then we go for my last knit for myself of 2023, and one of my favorite summer knits ever, which is the one that I want crop by Lily Kate France. You can see this one here in the back. It's buttoned. This top is amazing in so many forms. It's super flattering, and it's not only in some kinds of bodies. I will show you some footage or pictures of me wearing it, but here it goes like that. If you go through the projects page, you will see all kinds of bodies, all sizes wearing this top, and all of them look amazing, from the extra small to the extra large. She has bust darts in this one. She has different instructions for larger and smaller boobs in the shape, and this one is made in garter stitch sideways. You start here and you knit everything until here. The pattern is one of the best written patterns I ever read. It's so organized, she has notes telling you to cross out what doesn't refer to you. I really have Lily Kate into consideration. In terms of pattern writing, I think she's the best designer I have ever knitted something from. In terms of creativity, in terms of style, I may still prefer others, although I do like her knits very much. I like her style, everything. I may prefer, by personal taste, Fable knitwear, Maid knitwear, which I have knitted multiple times because of their inspiration and the vintage flair, although it has it too. But for pattern writing, she's the best of the best to date for me. I think it took me 21 days to finish it. I probably was knitting other things. Here it says I started in December 10, 2023. It finished December 31, which I'm sure I did because I wanted to wear it for the new year, and I did. The new year of 2024. I don't have the footage anymore, but when I first tried starting knitting podcast, which was in the first day of 2024, I filmed for 4 hours wearing this one. I think I have a picture somewhere. I will post it here. I was so proud of this one. I really like it. It fits very well. Everything is well thought. This crochet shell edges here, there are crochet borders here too. They are meant to prevent the garter stitch from stretching and getting out of shape. This is made to prevent you from enlarging your project accidentally in the process of wearing it, of putting it on. I think in my vintage lace knitting video, I talked about using buttons to knit with cotton so you can prevent the stretching over your shoulders, because cotton not always comes back to its shape. This one was knitted with yarn that has a little bit of acrylic. The original pattern is supposed to be knitted with cotton acrylic or cotton wool, and if you're going to knit this, I advise you to do that because it's meant to be fitted. So the elasticity is an important feature of this top. It's originally a cropped top, but she has instructions to elongate the body. It's quite simple to do. Everyone could knit it and everyone should knit this one. Let's go to 2024 and go to our next knits. I just saw here that my next one was my Sugarplum Jumper. My second knit by Fable Knitwear, of many to be honest, and one of the most difficult to make work, but one of my favorites to date. I love this pattern. And even though it was not the best experience knitting it, I definitely want more than this one. Here, you can see. I will post pictures. I have a lot of pictures wearing this one. It's a little bit crunched because it was in stored, but it gets smooth on its own in the body because it's very drapey. I started knitting this one in December 13, 2023, and I finished it January 5th, 2023. That's why it took me a little bit more to finish this one, I think, because I was knitting both. And it took me only 23 days, which is okay since I knitted it in 8 needles. And this is part of the reason why it was so troublesome to knit it, because the pattern recommends, I think, 5 needles. So what happened is my gauge was back then very tight. Fable Knitwear knits continental, if I'm not mistaken, and she has overall a large gauge. My gauge was overall tight. Not anymore, because I started knitting continental too and it loosened a bit, but back then it was. So I only was able to match gauge with an 8mm. It meant, however, that my roll gauge was very different from whatever Fable Knitwear's roll gauge was. I think this is one of her earlier patterns in which she did not mention the roll gauge. We only have the information for the stitch gauge in this pattern. It's a raglan, alright, but it's a button-up raglan. So you knit the sleeve, you knit the other sleeve, you knit the bodice, and then you join everything, and you have to start decreasing here to create the raglan shape until you get here. It doesn't have short rows. Maybe it's something we could add. Although, because it's a turtleneck, it has a little bunching up here, but it doesn't bother me. But maybe in a second time, I would attempt adding some short rows in the back. So we have to decrease to close the rag, right? With a very different row gauge. If I were to decrease as many rows as she commanded in the pattern, I would have a giant yoke. I would have a yoke that would hit me maybe here and just wouldn't work. So I had to recalculate everything and change the pace of my decreases. This time I didn't choose to change the pattern, but I had to. All is well that ends well, and this one ended very well because, oh my god, I love this. I love this item. This is amazing. It's oversized enough that I can wear something underneath. It's cropped, so I can wear it with my high waist bottoms, which is what I prefer. And it's so light. It's lightweight. It's very warm because this is 64% alpaca, 37% nylon. I also picked a special yarn for this one. It's very stretchy. It's soft, super soft. It's very pleasant, and I can wrap it, store it in my bag, and I am warm. I'm really warm when I have to go somewhere. So I sometimes default to this one when I have to go out and it's not like the dead of winter that I have to wear more clothes. This one is in my bag, and then it gets a little colder in the end of the day. I'm wearing it and I'm glad. I do want another one, maybe black, maybe white, probably not white, but maybe black, maybe green, to fit my wardrobe. I recommend this pattern, but not for a very beginner. You might have some trouble there. If you have some weight in your storage that you don't know what to do about, Sugarplum. I would like to have one very dark red like her sample here. This was the closest that I could get. It's more like a wine color, but the colorway is red, but it's good enough for me. It's heathered, if you can see, has some blackness here. I considered ordering Pickle's yarn, the one she uses, but it would be much more expensive, and in that moment I would rather buy this one that I could buy in Brazil. And that's what I did, and probably that's what I am going to do if I knit it again with another color. But the composition is fairly similar. Hers is a blown yarn, and that's why it's so soft, warm, and light. And you can get a variety of gauge. If you never tried blow yarn, I do recommend it. It's very good. But the Pickles yarn has a little bit of merino too. This one is only alpaca and nylon. And that's it. Let's go to the next one. Hello, it's another day. I have tried to reproduce the scenery and my clothes and everything as best as I could for continuity's sake, but I decided the other day that I was losing light. So rather than just running to finish everything that I had to talk about quickly and not talk enough or not talk all that I had to talk about, I decided to shift the recording of the rest of the video for another day. We have covered 6 clothes already, and we will talk about the other 6 today. We were then in January of 2024, and this year was pretty special for me in knitting, but the first item that I knitted in it was my 3rd summer knit. So I was talking about 2024. I gave it as a gift to myself 1 month of support to Squid School of Vintage Knitting. So I subscribed for it for a while, and I gained access to her patterns. So I had all of her patterns to that date, nothing that was released after that. This was one of them. It's the Cabana Club top, and if you check the pattern here, you will see that mine is a little bit different. It's because I made a mistake. I didn't read the entire pattern beforehand, and it's a made to measure pattern, as all of her patterns are, I think. And there are some calculations you have to do departing from your measures, and I misread one letter in the calculation, and then it led me to knit much more than I should have in the back. Her version, the front is significantly taller, higher than the back. And I just kept knitting in the round a lot until I realized that I had made a mistake. So mine is almost the same length because I cast off the back and just follow it a little bit to create the shape in here, and created also my own version of a strap. It's based on the strap in the pattern, but in the strap in the pattern, you will either tie it in the back of the neck, or you will just make it continuous, but it would go from the front to the front because, well, the back is quite short here. It's kind of a beach top, so it doesn't matter very much. But in my case, if I were to do it like that, the back would be flippy. So I attached the back here in the middle. It's not perfectly centered, I should say, but I can wear it in the summer pretty well. Sydney does some patterns that are just recreations of an original vintage pattern, like the one I have made. You can find the link in the description. But she also has some that are her original patterns based on some vintage concepts, ideas. I think this is the case, one that is hers, but based on older patterns, particularly a 50s style. But well, I used a scrap yarn. If you just saw my two other summer knits, you can recognize these yarns. This one was from the Lily Kate's Friends cropped top, and the black is from my Hedwig Tank. The black was completely consumed, and I still have a little bit of this purple. I originally got 3 skins and it went very far. Well, there you have it. I have this video in which I'm wearing it if you want to see it better, but some pictures are here too. This is a bottom-up pattern, as many vintage style patterns are, but it was knitted in the round, not flat. I made something very wrong here. The way I carried up my yarn didn't work very fine. I pulled it too strongly. In another iteration, I most surely would address this. It's mostly stockinette except for this panel in the back, which is ribbed, you can see, and it gives an amazing opportunity for shaping. You have the waist shaping here with decreases, increases, right? But also this, which brings flexibility and increases the wearability. Depending on the day of the cycle, our boobs get a little bit bigger, or for any other reasons in a woman's life, our bodies may change. So having a piece of clothing that comports this changing is very nice. So this is a design feature I think is particularly interesting to include even in other patterns to increase the wearability in time. And also the stretchability of a pattern that is largely cotton. This is not completely cotton. I believe that the original may be even knitted in wool, the sample I mean. Mine is not, of course, it's mostly cotton with a little bit of acrylic to provide the stretchability. I don't know if this pattern would work with 100% cotton, to be seen, but not maybe, because I think if I were to knit it again, I will try to keep some stretchy material in it. It was also knitted in a 4.5mm. Most of what I will show you, you will see that the first ones were knitted in very large needles because they were all bulky knits, and then I switched to this and my others from 2024. I knitted a lot in 5mm, 4.5mm, 4mm. This year I'm knitting mostly in 3.5, 3, even 2, so we're getting smaller and smaller in needle size, but the timeline of the knitting, the deadlines are increasing accordingly, right? Well, you win some, you lose some. I only use it 304 meters here. I should say that as my version is much longer and also it's the full body version, you can knit this pattern with much less yarn. And I think the original is for iron weight, but this is the K. And since it's made to measure and the instructions are to create the shaping, you can actually adapt this for a variety of gauges. You work with your own gauge with Sydney's patterns. It took me almost 1 month, mostly because of that. This took me much longer than I expected to be knitted, but it's done. I don't wear it much because DK weight cotton takes ages to dry, even in hot summer. This is partially the reason why I have switched to thinner yarns this year. So let's go to the next one. And the next one is this that I'm wearing, my Maid of Fall dress by Ocean Knits or Vanessa Fleming. Let me stand up to show you the entire garments. Here, a moment, the back. Here it is. I love it. So this dress, one of my goals for 2024 was to knit dresses. I really love knitted dresses. I like dresses overall, but even when I didn't knit, I would admire knitted dresses, so I decided I was going to knit them in 2024. And from the long list of dresses that I admire, I aimed for 2 that were knitted in a bit larger needles, larger yarn. Something I used to do in my first years of knitting. I didn't do this year, but in some sales that exist in January, I would buy large quantities of yarn with projects in mind that I wanted to make along the year. And I should say that I was pretty good in using most of that yarn, if not all, within the year in which I bought it. So for that year, I wanted to knit this dress, I wanted to knit another one that I will show you, and I wanted to knit a cable dress named, I think, Aren, by Kim Hargraves from Rowan, this one. I'm showing you the version here, which is some version from Ravelry by another knitter, because that's the version I had in mind. So as these were bulky or iron, I wanted to buy yarns that had a little density. They had volume, they would get bulky gauges, but they won't be heavy. Because if I were to knit this with wool, 100% wool, it would weigh tons. But this one only weighs 400 grams, the entire dress, which is not that much for knitted dress in bulky weight. The same about the other one. So there was a sale of this yarn, Pashmina by Fuse Penguin, which is kind of a fluffy yarn, you can see. It's acrylic, nylon and viscose. And it's very proper. You can get some variety of gauges with it. So I got this in red, black and white, which are three colors that I for sure know that I would like to wear. I wear it every time. They are my neutrals. And I also bought another yarn that was on sale, which is Dandara. It was from a collection that was released for a short amount of time, and they were selling the last ones. I don't think it's produced anymore. And it's a tweedy yarn in Aran weight, but quite light. It has little bits of linen. The tweed is made with linen, so it's acrylic and linen, that one. And I thought that with that one I could make the Aran, but I wasn't sure, because I will show you the yarn. We will talk about this later, but here you can see it's not a plain color. It's busy. It has something going on with it. So I swatched for the Aran and didn't work. I started making the chart for the arm. I love it making the cables. I did not like how the yarn clashed with it. I couldn't see the texture or the yarn well. And my main idea for that dress was to make it in white, just like the sample. But this yarn was quite cheaper, so I took a jump, and the yarn quantities for that dress are considerable, are pretty high, because you're knitting an entire dress and all over cable, so you can see it's up yarn. I bought 9 skins and I made so much with this one. So well, I gave up on that dress and I decided to find other projects for this yarn. And this kind of yarn, I even considered knitting the Aran with the white one, but I wouldn't have enough for once, and for twice it would also obliterate the cables because of the texture. So I swatched for this, and I swatched for the other one that I have, which is ribbon. It obliterates the ribbon a little bit also. It's not super defined, but it's not a big damage. So out of the 3 dresses I wanted to knit, I ended up doing 2, and both took me the entire year together. Well, this one, it took me 4 months and 11 days. 132 days on the needles and with the finishings and everything. Not many finishings, it's mostly on the needles indeed. It's also made to measure, just like the Cabana Club top. I do like made to measure patterns. You have to make more math up front, but the result is much better. Well, of course, we have patterns that are very good fit, but even so, a made to measure is tailored for you. Then I started this, and it starts with a provisional cast on at the waist, and you go up and then you go down, and you make all the bodice. It's full of details. You have loads of customization options. I went for a more fitted bust because this is better for me. So I started knitting 5.5, I think, millimeter needles, or a 6 one because of my swatch. But when I finished the bodice and I tried it out, it was much bigger than I needed. My actual gauge turned out to be way different from my swatch, and it happened a lot in the following years. I think my knitting was getting looser maybe. So I started again after I had finished from this up, except for the sleeves. So I had to knit this twice, and of course then I already had made my options, so it was quicker to kind of, because my rows were also smaller, right? So the length was added lower. Then I went for the sleeves, and it took me a lot of time too, because I was undecisive about what I was going to do. This pattern has options for a puff sleeve, so you can increase here, so you create a puff sleeve here, and then you go straight to the end. I wasn't sure that I would have enough yarn to make such big sleeves, because you can see my sleeve. When I wash, the viscose brings it down and it's full length. But other than that, it's bracelet length which I like for practicality, but I used the 4 skins here. I just got a little bit off, so I wouldn't be able to make those. But I considered them. I started making one, and the other one I made it flat with the creases. I think it's also an option in the pattern. I didn't like any of them, so I unmade both, and I decided I will start the flat one, and instead of decreasing like for a tapered sleeve, I was going to do something I had done before and increase and then rapid decrease here to create a kind of a balloon sleeve. And I really like it, the impact it gave to the dress. Very effective, looks better. I would like to have the other versions. If you saw my saga with the medieval sweater, the Avalon sweater, you know that I get very undecisive with the sleeves. So that's why I never do it at a time. I would like to, but in this case I might change my mind, and then instead of unraveling one, I would have to unravel 2. So I prefer to make all the decision in one sleeve, including length, how long I want it, and when to start the decreases, when to stop the decreases, and then I just reproduce it to the other side. That's what I did. Then I started making the increases for the skirt, and it's just perfect. I really love this one. The only downs is that the time to wear this kind of dress in the year is not ample, because we have very little temperate days in Brazil, kind of mid-range. It's either too hot for it or too cold, usually. But I'm wearing it today, I'm enjoying it. The days in which I can wear it, I really enjoy them. And that's it. I was very satisfied, but it was time consuming and mind consuming, so then I wanted a simpler project, and that's what I went to. I went for this very common stockinette sweater. Very simple, very basic. I just wanted to go with the flow kinda and use my yarn. This one is the pattern Step by Step Sweater by Florence Miller, which is handmade by Florence. It's a free pattern and a free tutorial in YouTube, so if you never knitted a sweater, this one is a great one to start. It wasn't my first sweater, as you know, and not even my most complex, but it was my first top-down raglan, so to say. And first time I made this too, the double folded collar. I opted for double folded because I already had 2 sweaters that were turtlenecks. Although, you know, I love a turtleneck, but I also like a mock neck like this. So I did it, and it was a very simple pattern, smooth sailing. You can notice that mine is quite different from the sample and many of the versions, because I purposefully knitted off gauge. I knew which gauge I had with this, not very far off gauge, but you can check my project in the description. And I also sized it down. I knitted the first size, the A size, which would be extra small. It has a nice fit, you can see here. It's quite classic, very classic. It's warm, it's soft. This yarn, I have a conflicted relationship with it because I don't love the variegation here. I think that compared to solid colors, this kind of colors doesn't flatter me much, but it's very beautiful in real life, the color itself, and very soft. It's so soft. I don't know if that's the linen or how they process it, the acrylic, but it's very light and soft and so good in stitch definition and good to the touch. I love this top, and I sometimes can wear it easily on bare skin, but the size allows me to wear something underneath as well. The one thing I would change, I added the short rows and the front still rides up. So if I were to knit it again, I would make more short rows. It's a common complaint that people do, that they need more short rows, so I would agree to that. Of course, maybe if I had knitted with the intended ease, which is I think 15 centimeters, maybe it wouldn't be a problem for me. But as I decided to size down and all of that, the amount of short rows that she has in the pattern weren't enough. Other than that, amazing, well explained, just 10 out of 10. You can pick that pattern, which is free, and default to it for a simple top-down raglan. Here it is. So by now it was already the dead of winter, or almost there, and I wanted to give life to an idea that I had been caressing for a while. I got this yarn from one moment that I wanted to buy some yarn to cope with unpleasantness. I found this yarn in a yarn store here, Marfim by Círculo, and I found it so beautiful and it's very soft. I will show you here in the project here. See, I think it's polyester maybe. I don't remember the composition, but you can see. It's ombre yarn with very soft touch. So I saw that yarn, it was a pretty hefty skin. I bought one for myself and I already left the shop with the idea of what I wanted to make with it, because I didn't want a shawl. Not that I'm not a shawl person, but now I think I only knitted the Sophie shawl once. I want to knit more shawls, but they are never my priority. So I wanted to make a garment, and I thought about using the methods from the 1920s, in which they would start from the bottom of a garment. They would start here, and then they would make a hole for the neck, right? And then if it was a sweater, they would also increase the stitches very much and make this huge shape in which you would have this open, okay? And then they would decrease again and knit to the other bottom and seam along the sides only. I found it so interesting, and I decided I was going to make something using that method to make the best use of the ombre quality of the yarn. But the yarn was a limited quantity because I only bought one skin, so I wouldn't be able to create an entire sweater, maybe with two of them. But then the challenge of using the ombre effect wouldn't exist. So I decided I was going to make a vest. Which kind of vest? I thought about having it very trapezoidal, like that, a trapeze, but upside down, and inspired in the 80s fashion, in which they would emphasize the shoulders very much, and I would like then to make it kind of stiff, thicker gauge, more solid gauge, more firm. You can see it's not see-through at all, it's very dense, so I could emulate some structure and have it maybe even tall here, you know? Not so much because I wouldn't use the shoulder plates, I don't remember the name, but ombreiras in Portuguese. I wouldn't use that, but I would like the fabric to stand up as much as possible. Maybe, if that was my intention, I should go for crochet, because crochet produces a more stiff fabric. But I'm more of a knitter, so I tried to do it. My initial intention was to sew only this and have the sides open, but it didn't work very much, it didn't look so good, so I seamed a little bit more here. You can see maybe as I'm holding why it was a little bit of a disappointment for me. I managed to execute my idea to some extent. One of the problems is my seam work. It's very hard to seam with this yarn. Fluff on top of it prevents me from seeing the stitches correctly. Also, my own thick gauge also troubles that, so my seams are not great at the sides. As I was going to leave it open, I decided I wouldn't like to have a raw edge, so I created an I-cord edge here. I then applied I-cord here. However, have you seen the Sophie shawl, the Sophie scarf, how they have those very thick edges? That's what I wanted here. Didn't work like that because I didn't know that when you work it in stockinette, it's different than when you work it in garter. It will roll inwards in the length and outwards here. That's why every time that you have something that has at the neckline or at the waist or here, you have the I always found that look ugly. But I had to use the I-cord here because the neck when I finished it was pretty wide. So here you have, I tried multiple times and it didn't work nicely. I don't like this, and I was going to make it into a pattern, but I was so disappointed with the final result that I decided I wasn't going to do it, and I just forgot about it later. But it's wearable, you know? I can wear it over a black top like here, or a white top or a pink top, and it looks nice. Let me see if I can show you here. Here, it's cropped. The intention isn't bad. I started purposefully at my waist to wear it with high-waisted bottoms or even dresses like that, you know? But doesn't fit this dress very much, I guess. Or even, yeah, you see, all the problem is here. I could, of course, go back and revisit, but I don't want. I'm very disappointed. You can see they are unequal here, I think. And I like to wear the darker side to the front, but sometimes I wear the other side to the front. I also wanted to make it reversible to enjoy the ombre effect. That's why I didn't make short rolls. Also because I think adding this kind of garment wouldn't be so great. If I could figure out the neckline, I would be happier, I guess. Maybe the best option would be to actually make some ribbon, very short ribbon, or even moss stitch, like they would have in some 80s patterns that had boat necks, which were my inspiration. I would like this to have a very large boat neck that almost cut across my front, like the patterns from the 80s. If I want to make it again, I would have to make some more design decisions here. And I think I wouldn't go then for the 1920s method. I noticed why they dropped this method, because it can create some inconvenience. This would look much better if I had made front, back and sewn. That's just undeniable. So maybe that's why they shifted for separate pieces in the 30s and 40s. So yeah, that's it. Let's go to the next one then. We have only 2 more garments and we're done. So alternating that heavy decision making, light decision making, etc, etc, I went then for my balloon jacket, which is one of the most chill patterns I ever knitted and most unpretentious. I wasn't aiming at much. I needed to use up this yarn because I only used 3 skeins for this entire sweater. You remember that I had bought 9, so I still had a lot of yarn, most of my yarn. And this one took 4. This entire huge sweater didn't took more than 4 skeins. It was knitted in 6 or 7 millimeter needles, 7 for the body and 6 for the trims. Sorry, the state of this is terrible because since the cold weather started, I picked this up from my wardrobe and I never dropped it anymore. This is so cozy. Folks, this is cozy. Here. I only wear it at the house, you know? I don't go out with it, but it's 30 centimeters of positive ease, and that's surely the garment with most positive ease that I ever made. So I can wear it on top of virtually any garment I own. I can just pick it and I'm covered. And it's unpretentious because it's garter stitch. The garter stitch worked very well with this yarn. It elevates the garter a little bit, and also the garter doesn't erase the yarn. This is partially seamed. If I'm not mistaken, it's bottom up, and you knit until here, and then you 2 parts, right? Then you pick up and make the sleeves and the round, and the bottom band is done afterwards. She doesn't contemplate buttons in this pattern. It's meant to be worn open, but it's a trim, right? I don't know if it's just a problem of mine, but you can see that it's riding up a little bit here. It's creating this kind of angle here, which I don't love very much, but it's a balloon, right? It's balloon jacket, the balloon sleeves, and the overall shape is more like a balloon enveloping you. And for what it is, it's amazing. Yeah, I give Petite Knit this one. I think I only ever knitted her garter patterns. No, I knitted the June top, which I didn't love very much, but you know, they work. This works. My mom loved it. She doesn't use this one, but she almost knitted it for her with the green yarn that she used to knit her vest. She would like to only make a vest version of this one. The gauge is pretty huge, so you finish it in no time. I think I knitted it in 22 days, the entire thing. And I just didn't see it going by because it was simply very relaxing. Apart from my everyday cardigan, the one thing it brought to my life was continental knitting. Yes, this was the first project in which I worked with continental knitting, and this was a lot of practice. And when I finished it, I could knit in continental. I don't purl in continental style, but I could knit in continental style very well after I finished this one. It transformed my knitting in a way so it has a nice place in my knitting career. And we're going to the last one of this video. Can you guess what it is? It's my other dress, my dear friends. This is my Dressilicious by Heidi Pickles. Here is the sample. And differently from the Made to Fall, it wasn't a made to measure pattern. It was a normal pattern. Top down, not a raglan. It's very minute with the shape. And you increase stitches all the time to shape the stitch pattern. Here, I can show you. You can see it's a 4x4 ribbon. So that's what makes it stretchy, and what makes it fit to your body is the amount of increases that you do. I knitted the extra small, and the extra small already starts in 70 centimeter waist. So it's a pattern that runs large overall. There are some things in this pattern that I don't love. Compared to the Made to Fall, it was more of a smooth experience knitting. It was a little more boring too because it took me a lot to finish it. It took me 321 days, 10 months and a half to finish this one. Of course, I started it in the same time I started many of these. I shoved it in a bag and I only picked it back up very much later. But even after I picked it back up, it took me a while to finish it because it was ribbing, because it was long, and because you would advance slowly here, and two very long sleeves to knit. The length is not so big because my yarn ended exactly there. I'm glad that it covered enough at the bottom. If you go for the project, you will see that the people that have more of a voluptuous body will look better with this one. I think it was thought for people which have very pronounced hourglasses. You can see even in the sample that the fabric here, the way it's shaped is not the best. Also, another thing I don't love, I remade this neckline a couple times and I couldn't get it to sit nicely. Some people that have knitted it didn't make the double folded, they just knitted as a turtleneck fully, or they made an I-cord here in the opening. These options didn't tempt me, but maybe the turtleneck would be nicer, I don't know. Between my two dresses, I prefer the other one, but this one is very cute too, you see, it's very beautiful. I think there are other patterns maybe that seem to have a better fit in those places where I talked, because these are the places in which here you can make many adjustments because you are forming the pattern. You can just increase or decrease stitches to your pleasure here. You need to follow enough to form the pattern. Down here at the waist, I was more independent. I could make it adjusted to my needs because I have a long torso, and also, as I say, the smallest size started in 70 centimeter waist. My waist is 68 centimeters, sometimes 69, so it was close, but it would be baggy. So to make it more form-fitting, I decreased it a little more to get to my waist, and I increased a little more to get to my hips to also contemplate the torso length, which is bigger. And because the way that you create those lines here, you will be increasing or decreasing and creating these strips. So I created one or two strips more here. Actually, I took away one or two and then I created them again here. Quite easy to do. Once you get in the rhythm with this pattern, it's very easy to modify the construction. You understand how the construction and the shaping goes. It's not very hard to do this. So by the time you are here, you can do it easily. Here, however, not, because you're making the yoke. The yoke is always a more sensitive place. I think it could be done in a way that this wouldn't exist, this tied arm here, this excessive fabric here, this triangle. I think it could be done, but it would require a lot of forethinking. You would have to sit with the pattern. The pattern is written in a kind of weird manner, not the most clear, I should say. It's row by row, so you have to read everything, draw it out, and see beforehand which modifications you would have to make to adjust the top part better. I didn't think of making it before because also I was kind of new to modifying patterns. I was kind of new to understanding the construction when I started this. When I finished this, I was already more knowledgeable of it. If I were to make it again, I would probably sit with the pattern beforehand and adjust this top part and maybe think about another solution for the neckline. I still wear it when I can because it's the same problem than the other one, although this one is more adequate for colder climate because there is a lot of coverage. The other one is open here. It makes it difficult to wear in colder days. This one, I can wear it in very cold days. And now that I have bought the ties I'm wearing with these dresses, they're fluffy in the inside, so I can get warmed in my legs too. And I think this will increase the wearability of my knitted dresses. And of course, my problem is that it's in black, so it grabs everything. But that's a problem of someone that likes to dress black, so whatever, I have to deal with it. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, folks. We only have one video left in the series to make after this one, which is my gift knit video. I have 19 gifts to talk about, so that's why I'm procrastinating a bit. We covered a lot of stuff today. All of these are garments that I do wear and love, some more, some less. Several of them I will knit again, and I recommend many of them. I hope you enjoyed my reflections about all of this. I hope it was useful for you. Maybe not only what I talked today, but also my project notes, were useful for you if you're knitting some of these or if you're picking your next project. And what was your preferred garment that I showed you today? I think if I had to choose, I would be between the Sugarplum, this one, and my crop top. Maybe the Sugarplum because of wearability, but all of these are really useful for me. Even my oldest sweaters, I still wear them. You have seen it in the podcast already. And have you knitted one of them, one of these patterns? What did you think about? Did you agree with my opinions on them? Did you disagree? Would you like to knit one of them? Tell me, what are your favorite patterns that you have ever knitted? What are the garments that you knitted that you wear the most? What are the lessons that you learned in your garment knitting? So if you like this video, maybe if you haven't seen them, check out the rest of the playlist with everything I ever knitted and my other videos in the channel. And I hope to hear your voice in the comments, interchange knitting knowledge with you all. As I always say, be happy, be healthy, happy knitting, and I see you in the next one. Bye bye.